Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while you're at it, if you are sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 every single time you want to buy a wrestling video game, stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today, and while you're at it, we do have some loyalty rewards in there. Make sure that if you're a $15 a month contributor, you get to co-host an episode of one of our live shows with me. And if you're a $7.50 a month contributor, you get entered into a drawing to host an episode as well. Also, we are the podcast for professional wrestling for www.tsj101sports.com, and we want you to go there to check out not just professional wrestling. All sports-related information can be found at TSJ Sports. They are a great source. I don't care what your sport is, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, you name it, you can find everything you need at tsj101sports.com. Check them out today. And if you are new to the Pro Wrestling Podcast and you want to check out our homepage, make sure you go over to frowrestling.com. It's a great place where you can preview the topics coming to the show at a time, and you can come up with questions, comments, things you want to share with us. And if you have questions for us, make sure you do one of two things. If you happen to be on when we are live, use the chat feature in whatever streaming service you're using, and you can get your comments put right into the show. Make sure you tell us who you are so we can give you credit for calling into the show. And at the same time, some people don't want to be on live. I get it. Some people don't like that. That's cool too. We have the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160, where you can send in comments, questions, etc., etc. Let's get started today. First episode in quite a while. I apologize. All the COVID craziness has had things just totally out of control, but we are going to try to get you guys an episode tonight, and I wanted to make sure that we put together a substantial episode. So tonight, we're going to kick things off talking about WWE leadership, because let's be honest, right now, the leadership in WWE has to be called into question at some level. Vince McMahon has absolutely zero accountability to anyone in the business. It doesn't matter who it is. Vince McMahon doesn't have a boss. He is the boss. And there's a problem with that. The problem is when you build up talents like Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler is one of the most pure, raw talents that have been out there in years. And as much as she built up excitement and energy and people wanting to see her, willing to pay to see her wrestle at WrestleMania, for God's sakes, Vince McMahon just doesn't like her. And because Vince McMahon doesn't like her, we're not going to push her. It's not just Shayna Baszler. I've talked about Shayna Baszler in the past. It's countless talents that Vince McMahon just doesn't see money in. Ricochet is a talent that has gotten over organically with the fans on the indie circuit and anywhere he's gone. His moveset is out of this world. As a matter of fact, this week, Edge was doing an interview, and on the interview, he actually cited Ricochet as being somebody he absolutely would like to work with. When you get that kind of credibility, that you have a Hall of Famer wanting to work with you, knowing that that same Hall of Famer doesn't get to have a million matches in his career, he's on a limited schedule to begin with, for him to choose that same talent as somebody he wants to work with, that should tell you all you need to know about how good Ricochet is. As a matter of fact, in that interview, he spoke about AJ Styles, Cesaro, and people like that. Cesaro is another one. Vince has never done anything substantial with Cesaro, and it's a shame. But I don't think anything bothers me as much as how they have murdered the booking of Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was the most over act in all of WWE heading into 2020's calendar year. When you got to the Royal Rumble, Bray Wyatt was the man. And then what ends up happening? We bring Bill Goldberg back and pay him a truckload of money. And then we hand him the Universal Championship. Now, I'm sure somewhere in somebody's mind, they were thinking this is fine. We'll give the championship to Goldberg. Goldberg will give it back to Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns will give it back to Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam. But the world keeps changing. You've got COVID going on. Roman Reigns not around. You change plans. You bring in Braun Strowman. And now you've been having this thing with Braun and Bray. Well, now here's the problem I have. Braun Strowman has in the past been over as white hot as anybody in the business. And now he's getting back to that level, And now he's got the Universal Championship, and you're going to take it off him to give it back to Bray Wyatt. Or at least if I was trying to guess what WWE is going to do heading into Extreme Rules, that's what I would imagine. When you're going to Bray Wyatt's backyard, you're going to pretty much have to give him the win, just like The Undertaker had to win the Boneyard match. But the problem I have is this. You can't keep building talents up and then knocking them down and expect the product to connect with the fans. People need somebody they get behind and they stay behind. They need villains that they absolutely hate and despise, and they continue to hate and despise. This constant shifting of championships and pushes and everything else is killing the business, at least WWE's business. Now, they would measure their success based on their profitability. Now, let's be honest. I don't know how much some of you guys know about the stock market and how, publicly traded companies make themselves look good. I saw some posts on social media complaining about how WWE was the only company that cut people during the COVID crisis. Other companies didn't do that and things like that. It was actually a comment by Maria Kanellis. And I have no problem with Maria Kanellis. I know she's frustrated. She was let go right after having a baby that was supposedly not going to be an issue, and then apparently it was. But what Maria didn't understand in her post, and what a lot of people don't seem to understand about WWE, is being a publicly traded company. They are the only wrestling company that is a stock-held company. Their number one masters to serve are the people who pay for the stock, not the fans watching the show. They don't care what you and I want. We want certain talents to get a push. We want certain talents to get over. We want to see certain matches and pairings and matchups. Let's be honest. If I polled the audience, which I wish I could do right now, I didn't set this up and I didn't know I was going to say this ahead of time. But if we could poll the audience right now and ask how many people who, when you found out that Edge was going to return from 9 years off of retirement, that his feud was going to be with Randy Orton for 2 matches and then he was going to be gone for another year because of an injury, I don't know if there's very many people who would have said, yeah, let's put him in there with Randy Orton. Now, I get it. They have a backstory and they have a history. You could have done everything you did with them at the Royal Rumble without having to have a match. But I will tell you, when Edge showed up at the Royal Rumble and AJ Styles was face-to-face with Edge, the pop was incredible. That is where they should have gone with the match. I understand you would have had to give up the Boneyard match, but that was the match that should have happened at WrestleMania. Now, if you were going to save that for down the road, you still shouldn't have done Randy Orton. There's a whole slew of talents in WWE that would have been new matches, things we've never, ever seen before. And even if you decided to do the Randy Orton match at Mania, be done with it right there. No greatest wrestling match ever. None of that nonsense. You have the match, you get the feud to be over, and move Edge on to somebody different. Had you done that, there's actually a good chance he may not have gotten hurt the way he did, and you'd still have him on the roster. Instead, we've got a guy down, torn muscles, surgery, out for a significant amount of time, who doesn't exactly have a ton of time left on his career to begin with. Now, you move on beyond that kind of stuff. The stupidity of some of the booking, and you know that Vince has to sign off on some of this stuff. The eye for an eye match at Extreme Rules. How stupid could you possibly be? And I saw the thing that Chris Jericho put out on Twitter, giving WWE, congratulating them on stealing AEW's idea, because AEW did that only recently when they did Santana Ortiz jumping Kenny Omega, or I'm sorry, John Moxley. But for as much, I don't know why Jericho's thrown out there. Wrestling has always mirrored each other. Every company always emulates each other because that's how you get over. You see what works elsewhere and you bring it to your company. For anybody to imply it's ever been any different than that, then I think they're just living revisionist history. But the stupidity of the fact that there are news outlets everywhere today putting out that WWE's match stipulation is that somebody has to rip the eye out of the socket of their opponent. No, they're going to injure the eye. And knowing the match and knowing who's booked where, Seth Rollins is going to hit a curb stomp on a steel steps. We already know that. That's what's going to end up happening. Now, what makes this match even more frustrating for me is that WWE needs to get on top of their business. And what I mean by that is, when you have a talent the level of Rey Mysterio, and you have him in a prime feud with Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio is a free agent. He could leave tonight. He has no contractual obligation to WWE. I think the only reason he would stay is because he thinks his son Dominic is getting a great rub from all the exposure he's getting on Raw. And I won't deny that. But the problem is WWE cannot just hope that Rey Mysterio is committed to Dominic so much that he won't leave. Because if I was Tony Khan, tonight I'd be on the phone with Rey Mysterio. Rey, give me a number. You and Dominic, give me a number. And whatever that number is, you got it. Now, maybe Dominic's under contract at WWE. I don't know. If he's not, I don't care if he was. Rey Mysterio, what's WWE paying you? What are they offering you? They're offering you $1 million a year. I'll offer you $3 million a year. You know what I mean? That's the kind of negotiation that someone like Tony Khan needs to make to really put a stamp on business. Now, they've done a great job. Don't get me wrong. I actually like the AEW product. I think they've done a better job without fans than anybody. But at the end of the day, you know, people always fear, oh, you don't want to be WWE light. Let's be honest. Back in the 80s and 90s, when WWE and WCW were going at it, or WWF and the NWA were going at it, no one cared if 15 guys went from one to the other. They just thought it was exciting because people were going somewhere else. Now in our overexposed media-centric society, we're too worried about too many WWE guys going to AEW. Oh, please, give me a break. We're not talking about, 2000s, Impact Wrestling or TNA Wrestling, where they brought in every guy they possibly could from WWE and used them the exact same ways or used them even worse. We're not talking about Main Event Mafia, which was supposed to be like Impact Wrestling's NWO. We're not talking about that. Jon Moxley going over to AEW, he was a totally different character and a much more authentic character. Chris Jericho going there created a whole new character. Now with Rey Mysterio, you can't really create much different, but people just love Rey. He's incredible. Same thing with Matt Hardy, the broken character. Fine, we're back to the broken thing. The reality is you can never have too much incredible talent. Rey Mysterio is that. So who in the heck is signing contracts for WWE and letting somebody the caliber of Rey Mysterio sit out there as a free agent and not renewing his contract? Because that's just absolutely bad business. By the way, before I say one more thing, I got to give a shout out to my buddy John the Sports Guy. He's tuning in from Marfa, Texas. John, I apologize. I had the other tab up on my screen and I didn't see it till just now, but I am so glad you're here. John is one of the most loyal people on the planet. We talk very often, almost daily, if not daily. I love that guy. And one of these days, he's down in Texas now, but he used to be up in my neck of the woods. One of these days, he's going to have to come up to visit. We're going to have to, catch up a bit. John is as loyal a listener as any podcaster could ever ask for. So, John, much love for you tonight. And by the way, I forgot at the onset of the show, I forgot to give my shout out to Mike in Lansdale. He is our #1 Patreon contributor. He is always supporting the show. Thank you, Mike. We love the heck out of you. Back to the news and things. As a matter of fact, speaking of John, the sports guy being on, I got to get him on the show one of these days. John and I are going to do an episode together because he's got great insight. He's a huge wrestling fan, and he and I have some incredible conversations about all the things happening in the world of wrestling. And sometimes he's my news source. He'll shoot me news before I even see it. So, John, we're going to make that work one of these days, very, very soon. One of the other things I wanted to talk about with the WWE before I move on is Heath Slater being on Raw this week. Now, don't get me wrong. I had no problem with Heath Slater being on Raw. And for those who don't understand what's going on here, Heath Slater's 90-day no-compete clause expires, on the 18th or whatever, the 15th. And technically, they can have him appear for them up until the end of his 90-day no-compete clause. So this was not some new contract signing for Heath Slater. This was a one-off to come in and just blow off his character out of WWE. And it was a beautiful, sentimental moment. Now, one, I would have given him an opportunity to look a little better. I think it's a crappy way to send him out with a one kick to the face and you're done. I think they could have done so much better with that. Made it more emotional. Have a physical match. Give him 10 minutes in the ring and just Drew beating him down and beating him down. He keeps fighting back and fighting back. And in the end, he's going to succumb to the kick to the face and be out. And, the Claymore is going to take him out. That's fine. But I think you could have built up the drama better. And this is what WWE's missing. It's like old school NWA where you take a baseball bat and you break Dusty Rhodes' arm. Or the Road Warriors would take a spike and carve his eye or something like that. There was sympathy. And the moments went on for an extended period of time. And people really could sink their teeth into the characters. Heath Slater had a genuine emotional moment last night on Raw. And people right away were like, oh my gosh, did he sign a new contract? No, of course not. They're just taking advantage of a talent that they don't have to pay any extra money to. He shows up. They do this one-off. He's gone. He'll be in TNA. He'll be at Slammiversary. He'll be teaming up with Rhino again, which I have no problem with. I actually like the Impact product lately. But I feel like it's very disingenuous of WWE to treat Heath Slater the way they did, bringing him back. Again, it goes to the leadership being in question. One thing that's even crazier about the leadership conversation is they have a new CFO, Chief Financial Officer, who apparently has helped their stock. Their stock went up today because when they had the announcement of the new CFO. So, I mean, kudos to their stockholders. Again, I don't know what that'll do for the product, if anything, but just saying. One of the stories that was in the news today that just absolutely blew my mind is Kota Ibushi. For those who don't know, New Japan Pro Wrestling superstar Kota Ibushi did make appearances with World Wrestling Entertainment during the original Cruiserweight Classic. And when he did, the story that came out today was that he was in the back during the Cruiserweight Classic, walked up to a large man and gave him a high five, not realizing that the large man was Vince McMahon himself. And that the fact that Kota Ibushi didn't know who Vince McMahon was somehow upset WWE upper management. Well, I hate to break it to you, the guy lives in Japan, and let's be honest, in Japan, New Japan Pro Wrestling is king, not WWE. And after New Japan is All Japan. And after All Japan is about 15 other companies that come before WWE. So the fact that he didn't know Vince McMahon, he may have not seen Vince McMahon's face since he was a kid and Vince was a lot younger. I don't know. I'm not trying to make excuses, but what I'm trying to say is the guy gave you a high five. You ever think about how the culture difference maybe to him that's a showing of respect? Vince McMahon and somebody in higher ups in WWE took that offensively. That's insane. And I love that Kenny Omega came out today, for those who don't remember, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi are uber tight. They were the Golden Lovers tag team in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he was like, go figure, a guy who goes to work and doesn't have to walk on eggshells around his boss. I agree. No one should have to be scared to walk around Vince McMahon. If he wields that much power and he can destroy your push that easily, then that's the problem with your company. You need to have that opportunity, and one of the most beautiful things about All Elite Wrestling is that their wrestlers can talk to Tony Khan. They can talk to Cody Rhodes. They can talk to the Young Bucks. They can talk to Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. And all the talents can collaborate together. And guess what it's doing? It's creating some of the most compelling and interesting storylines and great matches and everything that American wrestling has seen in quite some time on a major platform. And I say on a major platform for a reason, because Ring of Honor, I think, has had some of the best products since 2003. They just don't have the exposure, But I'm talking about big market, big television deals. They are putting on some incredible, incredible business. As a matter of fact, I thought it was interesting that the Wrestling Observer gave their ratings for the matches for the first week of fyter-fest and the Great American Bash. And fyter-fest ratings, at least, according to the Wrestling Observer, were much better. Now, I'm not going to say I necessarily agree or disagree with those. I thought that the match that draws in 900,000 viewers on NXT last week is probably a better match than one that draws significantly less. It was certainly more compelling, maybe because of the names involved. And I think that they deserved as high a score as the highest score for fyter-fest. But at the end of the day, it's not even a debate. The ratings can say what they want to say. The number of viewers for a WWE product, I expected at some point WWE would overtake them in the ratings because they've got a much bigger platform and they've got a bigger way to distribute their content. Okay, so at some point they're going to generate more interest. But true wrestling fans, when they look at the products side by side, All Elite Wrestling is doing incredible business. I'm not talking about dollars and cents business. I'm talking about wrestling business. Even the stuff with people like Jake the Snake Roberts and Arn Anderson, who are old timers coming in and contributing, they're doing it at a high level. Taz is contributing a mouthpiece for Brian Cage at a high level, maximizing his current skill set so that he could be a really effective part of the program. He's actually going to be at fyter-fest tomorrow night. He's going to be making a major announcement. He's going to be making some huge announcement. Now, I have no idea what Taz's major announcement is going to be. I suspect it has something to do with the World Championship. I know there's concerns about Jon Moxley, because for those who don't know, Moxley has been quarantined because of his wife getting COVID-19, Renee Young. It's frustrating, but it threw off fyter-fest. It postponed the World Championship match, and they're not going to be able to do that until they get to Fight for the Fallen and all those things. but I'm curious to see what the announcement is. But the fact that Taz is being put into a position where Tony Khan is hyping his announcement just tells you that Tony Khan understands how to maximize his talent's contributions. Completely opposite of what WWE is doing. WWE takes an incredible talent, and if they wear the wrong shoes to the ring, Vince McMahon is ready to pull the plug on them. That's insane. Absolutely ridiculous. John, I just want to throw John's comment out there. John just put up that JR and Tony Schiavone are such a great announcing duo together on AEW. I actually agree with that. And you know what I think is interesting? They missed each other in JR's first run through WCW because that was the time when Schiavone came to WWE. And then they had a little time where they were there at the same time. And then JR left to come to WWE. And then Schiavone went back and was doing the Nitro thing. So it's almost like they've never had an extended period of time together. But I think when they first started going together, it wasn't the best thing in the world. But they have seemed to gel pretty well lately. And I really like their work. So I agree with you, John. They're doing a really nice job. I think people who don't appreciate JR's work just don't understand the beauty of calling a match. I mean, he does it as good today as he did 30 years ago. Another tidbit on AEW, Brian Pillman Jr., which if you've never seen him wrestle, oh my, made his debut on AEW Dark this week. He's a contracted wrestler with MLW. However, MLW has stopped doing shows. So there's a clause in his contract that allows him to perform for other companies. That's why he's working for AEW. Now, there's rumors out there that he's asked for his release. MLW is saying that they have not granted him his release and that he's still expected to appear at their next two shows, one in October, one in December. But if you are not going to provide your talent with an opportunity to perform, I believe if you took that to court, Brian Pillman would win. Because you can't force somebody not to make a living just because of COVID. You can't. I mean, I understand shutdowns and things of that nature. I do, but that's not why MLW is shut down. Every other company is running, shows without fans. MLW could be as well. They've chosen not to. Now, I respect their decision not to because they're doing it out of safety precaution, and I have nothing but respect for that. But people want to earn a living, and Brian Pillman Jr. right now believes that AEW offers him an opportunity to be highly exposed and maybe start to really make a name for himself, much like Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, some of these other guys who had great careers maybe on the indies, weren't so much household names, are slowly becoming household names. It's a beautiful thing. Speaking of AEW, and this is a sensitive topic, but I have to address it because I haven't done an episode in quite a few weeks, and I want to make sure that I put this out there. I'm going to respond to all the assault claims that have been made all over the industry, and to Sammy Guevara specifically, because we're on the AEW topic right now. I love the way AEW handled Sammy Guevara. I think that there is a difference between a ridiculous, out of line, immature, and completely inappropriate comment like he made. And if you don't know what he said, please look it up somewhere else, because I have young people who tune into the show, and I'm not going to say it here. But what he said was completely inappropriate, but I will say there is a but there, that it's not as bad as some of the physical aggression that has been reported. Now, on the topic of talent across the industry being accused of all these sexual assault claims and whatnot, if you are someone who is in a position as an athlete, if you're in a business and you're taking advantage of fans, talent, the booking of other wrestlers, things of that nature, you are killing the business. And I'm talking about some of the biggest names in the business. And I'm not going to call out names because I don't have evidence to support either side for any of these. But you cannot convince me that these people are all lying. Maybe some are looking for the spotlight. Maybe some have other motives. But I guarantee you, a huge number of these claims are legit. And I applaud Tony Khan for suspending Guevara. I think if it had been physical, he had better have been fired. At WWE, they have fired several NXT UK talents. Good move, WWE. My question now is, what do you do about other people, like Matt Riddle? Now, I've been watching the Matt Riddle thing going on online for weeks now, months now. He's had accusations about how he treats women and I'm confused by the young lady who's making her accusations, because she keeps saying how it was this horrible experience, but then she's posting pictures of cuddling with him and kissing and how they got together for their swing through with NXT. Like, it's very confusing to me. And I know that WWE is looking into it, and Riddle says he has a lawyer, and she says she's doing what she's doing. I don't know who to believe. What I know is we're all human beings. We need to treat each other with respect and dignity. We need to treat the women of this sport. They're not eye candy. They're professional athletes. They are allowed to be attractive and beautiful and all those things. But there are a lot of those women who do it who dress the way they do and act the way they do because they're confident, powerful women. That being said, they deserve respect. They deserve an equal footing in the business. And dare I say, now that women have main evented WrestleManias and main evented Raws and main evented NXTs and SmackDowns, they deserve equal pay. Hands down. No question. But above the pay is they deserve equal respect and treatment in the workplace. Any of the talents that have been accused, if they ever took the liberties that some of these people are saying to move forward their own agenda, it's disgusting. Makes me sick to even have to talk about it. And the fact that I do have some young people to tune in, I actually feel horrible that they even have to hear me talking about this. But it's important because I have young people who tune in. Those who don't know, I'm a teacher. I have students who listen to this show. You know what I tell my students all the time is about respect. Well, respect these women. Respect these talents. And it's not just the women. There's male talents that have come out and said things. Respect these people who have in their life in some way experienced some kind of traumatic event, and they need people to listen to them. And right now, that is our role, is to listen. We don't have to pass judgment. We don't have to say who's right and wrong, but we do need to listen. Let them say their piece. Now, when everything comes out and people investigate things, maybe we get closure. Maybe we don't. It's not our job to get closure. It's our job just to listen. That's what we can do for the people who are in this movement right now. All right, I'm going to get off the deep topic because I got deep there for a second. We got to get back to some other stuff so we can keep the smiles on faces too, because my students will always tell you I'm all about the smiles. Ric Flair being on Raw. Like, dude, COVID's going on, man. They got like 30-something people I diagnosed with coronavirus, and Ric Flair, 72-year-old Ric Flair, who's already almost died, is at Raw. Now, don't get me wrong, I love seeing Ric Flair, and I think what the work he's doing right now is phenomenal. I love seeing him work with Andrade since his daughter's going to marry the guy. But I fear for his safety, and how in the heck are we this far into the COVID pandemic and WWE is still getting such high numbers of people testing for it? They're obviously not taking it as seriously as they need to. Now, that's Ric Flair. A lot of the other talents, majority of the people who are in really good shape like these guys are going to be just fine no matter what happens. But when you get somebody like Renee Young, who is feeling respiratory stress from this, that's frustrating. That's sad. That's something that shouldn't happen. I do love that she kind of got everybody talking about, was she leaving WWE with her big announcement last week? It turned out it was her cookbook. Congrats to her. We love it that Renee Young has a cookbook. Just, I think everybody was looking for a more juicy story than a cookbook. Just saying. Let's get into some more news. Kairi Sane. Kairi Sane was advertised for Raw, then taken off the advertisement. Her contract is coming up to be renewed. She wants to leave WWE, go home to Japan, and be with her husband. She married, for those who don't know, New Japan Pro Wrestling superstar Evil, who's a member of Los Ingobernables de Japón. He's a member of that team, and he doesn't get to see his wife because she's in the United States. I can't even imagine what that's like. The word is that when her contract was up, she was going to be written off television in a career-ending injury, go back to Japan, wrestle for a year, and retire. That was the rumored plan. Now, today, she posts on Twitter that she's back. And the word is that her leaving WWE is not a done deal. Now, previously, they had thought that she would be an ambassador for the WWE NXT Japan expansion, and I still think that's a possibility. Maybe right now is a little tough because of COVID, but I think what they're planning to try to do, and maybe they've already done it, is I think they want to give her a very lucrative contract so she doesn't go anywhere else. Maybe she stays in the U.S. for a little while longer, but then once COVID stuff starts to calm down just a little bit, maybe then they can launch their NXT Japan, because they need to do that. Let's be honest. That's something that has to happen. That there is so much talent in Japan that doesn't get enough exposure because there's so many people, which I find interesting because we've got a lot of American wrestlers going over there seeking a better wrestling life, like Gallows and Anderson and people like that, always going back there. Gorillas of Destiny, people like that. But her future, very much undecided, so we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Great American Bash versus fyter-fest coming up tomorrow night. I hope you guys watch both shows. I don't know why we worry about the ratings. If you're listening to a show like this, you probably are watching both. And if you're not, get yourself a DVR of some kind or find it on YouTube or whatever. I personally have a TiVo, and I record every ounce of wrestling that you could possibly dream of. Now, I don't get to watch all of it live sometimes. I really don't. But I do get to everything. And I am very much looking forward to both the Great American Bash and fyter-fest. Now, it makes me irritated that we already know the winner of the Great American Bash's main event. I think that's insane. The idiot who sent out the Great American Bash spoiler photo, he ought to be fired immediately, because it's one of the most sentimental and emotional stories. And for those who don't know, I don't want to ruin the Great American Bash for you. Let's just say it this way, because some people follow all the news, some people don't. Let's just say it this way. Somebody is going to win a match at the Great American Bash who, one of their idols, one of their role models, one of the people who helped train them and get them into the business just passed away. Killer Tim Brooks, a wrestler from the 1980s and early 90s, recently passed away. And he was very instrumental in this person's through the professional wrestling world. And so this person is basically dedicating this match to that person, to Killer Tim Brooks. And that's a very emotional thing. And I think that by this NXT talent taking a picture and posting it on social media, you have now destroyed that special moment. It's kind of like, makes me feel like way back when Mick Foley won the world title for the first time and Tony Schiavone ruined it for people. Now, I think lots of people will tune in to see it anyways because they want to see it. If you're somebody who's attuned to what's going on, you know what I'm talking about. I think you want to see how it happens. But for fly-by-nighters or casual fans, the ones that you really need to bring in to win the ratings wars, you put too much of that out there, you ruin it for them. They're like, wow, I don't have any reason to tune in now. So that was insane. Like, I don't know how that happens. Speaking of WWE tapings, though, I did see this week that they're fining talent for not wearing masks. $500 for the first time, $1,000 every time after that. I don't know what that does because I don't know how much that hits the bottom line of people like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, people like that. But if you're, Joe Schmo who hasn't made it to the main roster yet, you better believe you're putting your mask on because you don't want to be giving up that kind of money. It's a lot of money for some of these young people. So I'm glad to see WWE is enforcing their mask policy, but I feel like it's too little too late. You already got 30-something people who have an issue, so we'll have to wait and see. I do want to touch really briefly on Slammiversary because I don't know that we'll get another episode up before the show happens. And Slammiversary is where I think you're going to see a host of talents from WWE, from various other locations showing up. And most specifically, I already said earlier, I think you'll see Heath Slater will be there. I think we'll see EC3. We'll see Eric Young. We'll see a lot of those guys, Gallows and Anderson, who I thought it was interesting. Gallows was in a thread today from Anderson with an Impact Wrestling shirt on, which I thought was really funny. He also looked like he was ripped out of his mind. I don't know why these guys get jacked up once they leave WWE. I don't know why WWE ever let them go. But I believe all of them guys are going to show up at Slammiversary. I hope the show comes off without a hitch. I think one of the issues for Impact Wrestling right now is when they lost Tessa Blanchard. For those who don't know, Tessa Blanchard no longer with Impact Wrestling. She's no longer the world champion. They stripped her of her championship because she's got an attitude problem and didn't want to do business. Her contract was coming up and it was going to be due anyways. I get the impression that she wasn't going to stay no matter what they did, which is kind of a shame because her fiance Daga still wrestles for Impact Wrestling, but she's been down in Mexico because of COVID with her fiance, and it just caused bad blood. WWE's already negotiating with her, which I find interesting in this era of all these harassment claims and whatnot. She's somebody who's one of the people who's received claims. They let go other people and now they're negotiating with her. And I think at some point, if they decide to bring her in, it would be interesting to see her and Charlotte get into a match. That'd be incredible. But we'll have to wait and see. But the reality is that Slammiversary has an opportunity. If you can get by the fact that you're not always as familiar with the names, their talent has been incredible and been putting on some really compelling storytelling in the ring. Please check it out. And it's already started. Deonna Purrazzo showed up there a couple weeks ago, and she's already in a main event program for the Knockouts Championship. So check out Slammiversary. It should be incredible on the 18th, and I think you'll see a lot of good surprises. I'm really hoping something really cool happens there. One thing I'm really hoping we don't see, and I know I might be in a minority here, but Conor McGregor throwing barbs at Vince McMahon last week and just the stupidity of the whole thing just blows my mind. Like, I know Conor McGregor's always just trying to get media attention, but dude, like, stop being stupid. Not going to happen. But I love the fact that Drew McIntyre jumped in and he's willing to throw down with him. I pray to God we never see Conor McGregor in a WWE ring because he doesn't strike me as a guy who would ever take it seriously. He just doesn't. I don't know how he's gotten to do everything that he's done so far, and he just seems to get away with stuff constantly. So hopefully that never happens. But I love that he was at least having some banter and trying to keep himself relevant. The big news last week, though, WWE purchasing Evolve, which is one of the most incredible independent wrestling promotions ever. They're one of the only ones that have ever been featured on the WWE Network. As a matter of fact, I think they are the only outside company that's ever been featured on the WWE Network with an actual live action program. I know there's been a couple times where they've borrowed scenes from Rev Pro and things like that, but I mean an actual show. Evolve ran a show last summer on the WWE Network, but now WWE owns Evolve. They purchased them. COVID shut them down. Gabe Sapolsky is going to be working with WWE now. Now, I'm just going to throw this out there. Crazy proposal time. You just had the COVID impact on Raw was really a shame. Okay, things kind of went down in a crazy way, but now you bought another company, you get their tape library, some Dragon Gate USA footage, Evolve footage, maybe some early Rev Pro footage. But what I'm more curious about is if they keep the brand alive, who runs it? And my crazy proposal is give it to Paul Heyman. If you're not going to let Paul Heyman do what he was doing on Raw, and let's be honest, I know some people say that Raw was getting watered down because of all these guys that nobody knew who they were, the Austin Theories and the Andrades and all that. If you don't know who these guys are, it does not take away from how incredible their in-ring work has been. And Paul was smart enough to see that. If you're not going to give him a premium network television time to do that, send him to Evolve and let him run that company. He is a genius when it comes to creating content. Just because not everybody knows the names doesn't make his storylines any less credible, doesn't make his booking any less fantastic. I think Paul would be perfect to run Evolve. Lashley in the news this week did another interview talking about his mixed martial arts future plans, and he said he is not done with mixed martial arts. He wants to do something substantial with this WWE run. We all know what that is. He wants the match with Brock. And let's be honest, at some point, but give the man the match you promised him. Because let's be honest, you can't convince me that was not a part of the negotiation strategy. Lashley versus Brock, you know they'll put Brock over. So I don't know why he wants it so bad. But they need to do that match. And here's the weird part. So Lashley's contract with Bellator was for 9 fights. He did 4 or 5 of them, whatever it was. And then it paused if WWE ever offered him a contract, which obviously they did. But it will go back into active status should he leave WWE. Brock Lesnar has a contract with UFC. Wouldn't it be interesting to see a way for them to get into some kind of legit MMA fight after a WWE program? I don't believe WWE is ever going to give him the match, which I think is ridiculous. I think that was probably how they got him in the door to begin with. And I'd like to see it, actually. But he's definitely going to fight somewhere in the future, he says. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes to play. Zicky Dice, for those of you who follow the NWA and their Power episodes, he had become the NWA television champion. He was actually getting some traction, but he is no longer under contract to the NWA. They've released him, despite him being their television champion, and they cited the fact that he needs to work on his in-ring work and his attitude. He's tough to do business with, which it's really strange right now that anybody would release anybody, but I guess if we're going to release somebody, release a guy who doesn't know how to work yet. And hope that it doesn't come back to bite you. Now, the one that really shocks me is Bully Ray. Ring of Honor, apparently he's done with Ring of Honor for now. They could always bring him back, but his contract is up. He's a free agent. He could go anywhere he wants tomorrow. And I'm just being honest. If you're WWE, can you think of a better person to help train your talent and get the Performance Center another layer of experience than by bringing in Bully Ray? And maybe he makes the sporadic appearance on TV for you or whatever, but I think he would be incredible. I know Devon has done an incredible job in his role. I think Bully Ray would only add another layer to that situation. And the last thing for tonight, I know this has been a long episode. We're at 40 minutes, so I want to wrap it up for you. The Necro Butcher. If you don't know who Necro Butcher is, he was in Combat Zone Wrestling, CZW, and unfortunately it was announced this week that he has a stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. It is terminal. It is inoperable. Sad news for Necro Butcher. And this is a guy who, let's be honest, he has put his body on the line in many, many ways throughout the years. And I mean, just a sadistic wrestler. But it's sad to see any of these guys who've been around for such a long time going through these tough situations. We hope he gets well enough to enjoy the time he has left. And, if there's bucket list things that he wants to do, I hope he gets out there and does them, because this guy's given enough to this business. It's time to enjoy the rest of the time he has. And our hearts, our thoughts and prayers, everything go out to his family. I just hope that they find a way to really make whatever time he has left as meaningful as they possibly can. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce all the music and sound effects we use in our shows. Today's podcast sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and click the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair for all your servicing of classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us tonight. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, make sure you check out the site we talked about earlier, www.tsj101sports.com, for the latest articles on the world of pro wrestling. Till next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.